New video offers our best view yet of an alleged would-be assassin running through a security checkpoint with a shotgun at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. President Trump making this joke when NewsNation asked him how he'll protect himself moving forward.
Is there talks about you potentially wearing a bulletproof vest moving forward, given you have now been shot at?
I don't know if I can handle looking 20 pounds heavier.
And the deadline for President Trump to get congressional approval or wind down the war in Iran will come and go. Lawmakers leaving town for another recess as the War Secretary says they have more time because of the ceasefire. And that will likely translate to even more bad news for anyone needing gas.
You can't really afford to do anything for fun. Summertime is coming, and what you gonna do? Stay home.
Gas prices across the country are rising to highs not seen in years. And the way things are going, they won't stop anytime soon. With your grocery bill set to be the next item taking a big bite out of your budget. Good morning, everyone. It's Friday, May 1st, and I'm Nick Smith in for Marky Martin. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We start in Washington, D.C., with federal prosecutors revealing new video of the man they say tried to kill President Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner on Saturday. Take a look at your screen. The U.S. Attorney's Office says this shows Cole Allen firing his weapon at a Secret Service officer as he charged toward the ballroom, running past that security checkpoint just moments after officers disabled a metal detector. Washington correspondent Kristen Eskow has more from the White House. Kristen, good morning.
Well, good morning, Nick. So the video that was released by the U.S. Attorney's Office for Washington, D.C. shows, according to officials, the shooting of a Secret Service agent was not the result of friendly fire. You see the suspect, Cole Allen, running from the left side of your screen toward the security checkpoint. He points his gun at one of the Secret Service officers, which authorities say he fired, striking the officer point blank as he continued running toward the stairs that lead to the ballroom downstairs. Now, that officer is seen firing 4 shots at Allen in the video. Authorities say the officer that was shot was not seriously hurt because the bullet hit his bulletproof vest. Now, U.S. Attorney Jeanine Pirro also released video that she says shows Allen casing the area around the ballroom at the Washington Hilton the night before the dinner. He's seen walking around a hallway area and also looking around the hotel gym. Allen dropped his bid to be released from jail yesterday as he faces multiple charges, including attempting to assassinate the president. Nick.
Kristen, quick question for you. President Trump is talking about possible changes to his security in the wake of this attack. How so?
That's right, Nick. Our colleague Libby Dean asked him about that in the Oval Office, and he offered a lot of praise for the Secret Service. Here's some of what he told her.
I know a lot of those people in the Secret Service, and they were good and they were forceful. When you have 1,000 rooms sitting on top of a ballroom, and you have the elevators coming down right near the entrance, it's a pretty tough situation.
President Trump again made the push for the White House ballroom he's trying to build just behind me. Now, on Capitol Hill, we've seen some lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, introduce legislation to get the ballroom built. But at this point, none of the Democrats I've spoken with this week have changed their mind about their opposition to the ballroom. Nick?
Yeah, Kristen, I think that will continue to be a fight before that is approved by Democrats. Kristen Eskow, thank you so much. For more, we are joined by Donald Lane, former Secret Service agent under Presidents George W. Bush and Bill Clinton. This video, Donald, I know you've had a chance to take a look at it. I'd like to walk through it with you there. What does this new video tell you about what unfolded on Saturday?
Good morning, Nick. Good to be here. You know, it tells me the same thing I saw in the original video, that there was an exchange of gunfire between Allen and a Secret Service, looks like a uniformed division officer, and that he bull rushed to the checkpoint there. You know, that's the bottom line. That's why you have agents stationed there, even after everybody's in the event. And you know, he encountered law enforcement, as he should have, and the Secret Service in this case, and he was stopped. So, you know, what you can see most clearly here that you couldn't see before is the actual exchange of gunfire very clearly in this particular video.
And Donald, what struck me immediately is how quickly agents respond. Like it happens in a flash and they respond in a flash. I do want to go back and focus in on a couple of things there. For viewers at home, I want them to take a look at the top left of the screen, because we see at one point, it looks like Allen walks into a room and a canine officer kind of follows him into that room. And he's clearly wearing a heavier coat or something. And then he comes out and he's not wearing that coat, almost as if the dog senses something isn't quite right. There on the left side of the screen, is it possible that that canine officer sensed something that maybe he was carrying that did not smell well or did not smell right to actually follow him in that room?
You know, there's a possibility that that's the case, or there's just the possibility that perhaps it wasn't the dog that alerted, but perhaps it was just that this gentleman's in the vicinity. So we're going to take note of it, kind of see what's going on. Maybe, you know, obviously didn't expect necessarily that what happened would happen, but you know, there are people, I said this in a previous report, there are folks around that you just don't see that are lurking in the background. You know, it's not just as if the folks you see on the screen at the checkpoint are the only Secret Service agents in the vicinity. So, you know, I think just because he was in the vicinity of the checkpoint, you know, there was another security measure around.
He clearly waited for that officer to turn around. We're looking at the screen there again for those at home. I'm talking about when we see Mr. Lane walk into that room and then he comes out. It also looks as though the timing could not have been better for Allen when he ran out of that room, Donald, because they had disassembled one of those metal detectors right at that time. So the agents appeared to be a bit distracted.
Yeah, you know, I would say that, you know, the agents here in this case were, you know, performing a task that the UD, Uniform Division, was taking down the magnetometer. You know, look, the Secret Service has to get it right 1,000% of the time, every time. For a would-be attacker, they just have to basically try to get lucky, especially now that we know the Secret Service is on task doing what they need to do. And you're right, this was an extremely fast response. For any critics that are out there, I'd ask you to keep in mind that this gentleman is shooting, and the gentleman who returned fire has gotten shot in the chest by a shotgun, is falling backwards and returning fire as a suspect is bolting through and tripping himself. So, you know, it was an incredible response, in my opinion, by the Secret Service in a good way.
Yeah, I'm not sure that there have been critics winning this argument, because even the acting attorney general praised the efforts of law enforcement and agents on this day, and have shot down the conversation around friendly fire. Now, an agent was shot in the chest during Saturday's incident. In the video, we can see him brandishing his weapon. The suspect rushes through. How are agents trained for moments like this that happen on a dime, where if I'm an agent and you're an agent, I can't say, hey, Donald, turn around, look. You have to just respond knowing what's happening.
That's right. That's right. You know, this is exactly what the Secret Service trains for, is that one moment in time where someone poses an extreme threat to one of our protectees. And so it becomes muscle memory. And that's why training is so important and so vital, because there's no thought process involved. It's simply muscle memory based off of training. And, you know, he withdrew his weapon in, you know, under 3 seconds. And as he's, you know, doing what he's doing, of course, he's going to attempt to get a communication out to alert others as to what the threat is. Of course, that becomes very apparent within a split second.
Donald Lane, thanks again for joining us this morning.
You bet. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Today is the deadline for the Trump administration to get congressional approval for the war in Iran. But the Pentagon says the law no longer applies to the conflict thanks to the ceasefire with Tehran. For more, let's go to NewsNation international correspondent Robert Sherman in Tel Aviv with the latest. Robert, good morning.
Good morning to you, Nick. Well, here we are, 60 days since the beginning of Operation Epic Fury, meaning this is the point in which the administration is expected to either make their pitch to Congress to extend the operations or to wind them down. But the Pentagon making the argument that with the ceasefire that is in effect, War Powers Resolution and the strict 60-day deadline is not applicable. Here's the Secretary of War.
Ultimately, I would defer to the White House and White House counsel on that. However, we are in a ceasefire right now, which our understanding means the 60-day clock pauses or stops in a ceasefire.
The Pentagon has said that this has so far cost taxpayers $25 billion, but Iran says that price tag is much higher, accusing the Pentagon of lying and saying the direct cost has been closer to $100 billion so far. Indirect costs for U.S. taxpayers are far higher. Monthly bill for each American household is $500 and rising fast. That is what Iran claims in all of this. But by that same token, they have also publicly acknowledged that the U.S. naval blockade is having an impact. The president of Iran calling the blockade intolerable, as the U.S. has already turned around 44 different ships, boarding a handful of others, both in the region as well as in the Indo-Pacific as well. Meanwhile, President Trump has had sharp criticism for American allies for not doing enough here in the region to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, saying this week that he's considering drawing down the number of U.S. troops in Germany. But when asked if he would consider doing the same for both Italy and Spain, the president said, probably. Nick?
Robert Sherman in Tel Aviv. Robert, thank you so much. Joining us now, Jamal Abdi, president of the National Iranian American Council, NIAC, and executive director of NIAC Action. Jamal, good morning. War Secretary Pete Hegseth clashing with Senator Kirsten Gillibrand Thursday, who alleges this war is not protecting Americans. Let's listen to that soundbite and chat on the other side.
There's no evidence that we are safer because of this war. We did not have any evidence that Iran intended to imminently attack this country in any way, shape, or form.
Do you not believe them when they say death to America? The American people are quite smart. They understand and see through spin. They know that a regime that says death to America, that seeks nuclear weapons and the ability to deliver.
Jamal, so many questions there. I know that the whole purpose of NIAC is to peace and diplomacy, but you hear the war secretary calling into question what Iran is saying, and we have called it into question as well because they cannot be trusted. We know how the regime works, but what do you make of the debate over how serious the Iran threat is as we hit the 60-day mark of this war?
Look, this is a debate that has been held in Washington for decades. Clearly, Iran, is not an ally of the United States, and I think the U.S. and Iran are at cross purposes in the Middle East. That's really not the question, though. The question is, what do you do about it? And this is an administration that's saying this is a threat that has been imminent for 47 years. Well, that's not what imminent means. Imminent means something that's just about to happen. And I think that this argument just doesn't hold up. What happened was that the administration decided, after many years of presidents being asked by Netanyahu to attack Iran and dismissing it because there's no clear way to have a victory without putting boots on the ground. This administration decided to go forward with it. And I think that if you actually, gave Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump a truth serum, probably regret this decision because this has become far more challenging than they were promised. And it doesn't look like there's an out from this war that allows the administration to save face. So the question of whether Iran is a threat or not, Iran, clearly the nuclear program, the repression of its own citizens, these are things that should be dealt with, but it needs to be dealt with diplomatically. We see the military option not working out as some thought it would.
And you'll remember when the intelligence director, Tulsi Gabbard, said that there was no imminent threat coming from Iran. But we have started this attack. And of course, this also falls on the heels of the Trump administration being very successful in the capture of Nicolas Maduro. Do you think that weighed into the decision to attack Iran and thinking that it would move and operate as quickly and as smoothly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that played a big role in the president's sort of psyche going into this war. And so he took the best case scenario, which was one in which the United States and Israel went in, killed the leadership of Iran, and then the people rose up and it was happily ever after. And I think because the Venezuela operation went off almost in a best case scenario, that there was some feeling of credence for this idea. And I think that that's been dispelled. And now what I'm worried about is this same sort of best case magical thinking is going into decisions about how to conclude this war or whether to continue this blockade. And I think similarly, if the administration is only looking at best case scenarios, that explains why they're continuing the blockade. But the reality is this is still not the inflection point or the opportunity for the administration to have more leverage than Iran, and there needs to be some realistic thinking about a way out of this beyond just continuing the war indefinitely.
Jamal, I've got less than 30 seconds. Can Iran outlast the United States holding the Strait of Hormuz?
I think the answer is likely yes. Iran does have more capacity for storing its oil than the United States believed it did. And Iran has suffered under sanctions for many years and doesn't really care about the population suffering under those sanctions. So, yeah, I think that Iran is better equipped to suffer through this versus the United States, where we're facing an election and paying higher gas prices and other bad economic effects that I think politically make this untenable for the president.
Jamal Abdi, president of the National Iranian American Council, thank you so much for spending part of your morning with us.
Thank you.
After more than 2 months, the partial government shutdown is finally over. But with hundreds of TSA officers quitting after going unpaid for months yet again, can the damage left by the funding lapse be undone? What we know about plans to get travel back to normal again. And millions of Americans could soon be cut off from the help they need just to avoid going hungry. Up next, the changes going into effect for SNAP today that could force food pantries to take drastic steps just to keep their shelves stocked. You're looking live at Washington, D.C., courtesy of EarthCam, a beautiful look at a sunrise over the Washington Monument. We'll be right back after this break.